This $1 powder has been protecting wood for over 50 years, and the paint industry has spent decades making sure you never find out it exists. Let that land for a second. While you've been spending $40, $60, sometimes $100 per gallon on wood paint and sealant, buying product after product that cracks, peels, fades, and fails within 3 to 5 years, there has been a $1 powder sitting on a shelf at your local hardware store that outperforms every single one of them. Not for 5 years, not for 10 years, for 50 years or more, permanently. And the companies selling you that expensive paint, the billion-dollar brands with the fancy commercials and the beautiful packaging, they have known about this powder the entire time. Contractors who know about this charge $500 minimum to apply it. Full wood treatment jobs on decks, fences, and siding, $3,000, $5,000, sometimes $8,000. And the dirty secret is the material cost is less than $10 total. The rest is pure profit built on your ignorance. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you is going to permanently change how you protect every piece of wood in and around your home. And it is going to save you thousands of dollars over your lifetime. Let's talk about what is actually happening to your wood right now. Right now, today, while you think your painted fence or your sealed deck is protected, there's a war happening inside that wood that your paint is slowly losing. And most homeowners have absolutely no idea. Wood is under attack from 3 directions simultaneously. First, moisture. Water gets into wood through the end grain, through micro cracks in paint, through areas where 2 pieces of wood meet. Once moisture is inside, it swells the wood fiber, then dries out, then swells again. This constant expansion and contraction is what causes paint to crack and peel. Not age, not sun. Moisture cycling, over and over. Second, UV radiation. Sunlight breaks down the lignin in wood, the natural glue that holds wood fibers together. When lignin degrades, wood turns gray and brittle. Your paint slows this down, but it does not stop it. Every summer the UV breaks through. Every year the wood underneath gets weaker. Third, fungal decay and wood-boring insects. Fungus loves damp wood. Termites and carpenter bees love soft, weakened wood fiber. Once they find a way in through a crack in your paint or sealant, they work from the inside out. By the time you see the damage on the surface, the structural damage underneath is already severe. And paint, even the best, most expensive paint, fights all 3 of these battles by sitting on top of the wood. It is a surface barrier, a coat of armor that sits on the outside. And the moment that armor develops a crack, one small crack from a nail hole, a knot, a joint, moisture gets underneath. Now the paint is not protecting the wood. The paint is trapping moisture against the wood, and the destruction accelerates. You've seen this. You've lived this. You painted your deck 3 summers ago, and already it's peeling at the edges. You spent $600 on premium exterior paint for your fence, and 2 winters later, there are gray patches showing through. You were on a treadmill, painting, waiting, watching it fail, paying to paint again. And the paint companies, they designed it this way. They need you back every 3 to 5 years. That is their business model. Here's what they never told you. The solution to wood protection was never supposed to sit on top of the wood. It was always supposed to go inside. I need you to keep watching, because in a few minutes, I'm going to give you the exact name of this powder, the exact mixing ratio, the exact application method, and you're going to understand why wood treated with this method 100 years ago is still standing today, while painted wood from 10 years ago is already rotting. They didn't hide this because it fails. They hid it because it works too well. This channel exists for one reason only: to find what has been buried by industries, by corporations, by profit-driven systems, and hand it directly to you. The knowledge that works, the knowledge that's cheap, the knowledge they don't want spreading. If you want to stop wasting money on industry lies, subscribe right now and hit that bell, because what's coming on this channel is going to keep saving you money for the rest of your life. Now let me take you back, because this story begins long before YouTube, long before paint companies, long before any of this. The year is 1906. A small coastal town in Oregon called Astoria, sitting right where the Columbia River meets the Pacific Ocean. One of the wettest, most brutal climates in the entire United States. A place where untreated wood rots in 2 years. Where moisture is not a seasonal problem. It is a constant, relentless, year-round enemy. A shipwright named Elias Connors was building fishing vessels and dock structures in Astoria. He'd been doing it his whole life, same as his father. And Elias had a problem. His dock pilings, massive timber posts driven into the river bottom, were rotting out within 5 to 7 years. Replacing them was expensive and dangerous. He started experimenting. He had read in an old German engineering journal about a wood treatment technique using copper sulfate solution that had been used on railway ties in Bavaria. Elias adapted it. He dissolved copper sulfate powder, available at the time as an agricultural fungicide, into water and pressure, soaked his timber pilings before installation. The results were extraordinary. Those pilings lasted 40 years. 40 years in saltwater and constant moisture in one of the harshest marine environments on the West Coast. When they were finally pulled for a dock renovation in the 1940s, the wood was still structurally sound. Workers reportedly couldn't believe it. The wood looked old, but it was solid. It had not rotted. It had not been eaten by marine borers. The copper had penetrated the wood fiber at a cellular level and made it biologically and chemically hostile to every single thing that destroys wood. The railway industry knew about this. The marine industry knew about it. Certain military engineers used it on bridge structures and fortifications, but it never made it into the mainstream homeowner conversation. Because by the time suburban America started building fences and decks in the 1950s and 1960s, the paint industry was already a multi-billion-dollar force, and copper sulfate cost almost nothing. Your grandmother already knew this. She used it every single day. She mixed it into her garden soil to stop fungus. She treated her fence posts before she drove them into the ground. She knew that wood that soaked up copper didn't rot. She didn't know the science behind it. She just knew it worked. And then her generation passed, and the paint commercials took over, and nobody passed that knowledge forward. Now let me explain exactly why this works. Because this is not folklore. This is real, documented, peer-reviewed chemistry. And once you understand what happens at the molecular level, you will never look at wood protection the same way again. Wood is made of cells, millions of them, long hollow tubes packed together, some for structural support, some for conducting water, some for storing energy. When wood is cut and dried, those cells are empty. They're open. They're waiting to absorb whatever liquid comes in contact with them. Normally that liquid is rainwater. And with rainwater comes dissolved organic material, fungal spores, bacteria, the beginning of decay. When you apply a copper sulfate solution to wood, those hollow cells absorb the solution through capillary action. The liquid travels deep into the wood, not just on the surface, not just in the first millimeter like paint, but centimeters deep into the core of the wood fiber. As the water evaporates, copper ions are left behind, permanently bonded inside the cellular structure of the wood itself. Now here is why that matters. Copper ions are toxic to fungi, bacteria, and insects at a biological level. When fungal spores land on copper-treated wood and try to germinate, the copper ions disrupt their enzyme systems and kill them before they can establish. And when wood-boring insects bite into copper-treated fiber, the copper is toxic to their digestive system. The wood becomes biologically defended from the inside out. And unlike paint, which sits on the surface and can be cracked, peeled, and compromised, the copper inside the wood cannot be scraped off, cannot be weathered away, cannot be washed out by rain. It is locked inside the cellular matrix of the wood fiber permanently. This is why railway ties treated with copper compounds in the early 1900s are still intact today. This is why utility poles treated with this method routinely last 50 years in outdoor conditions. This is the science that the paint industry decided was not profitable enough to teach you. Now let's talk about that industry. Because the numbers here are staggering and the behavior is inexcusable. The global decorative and protective coatings industry, paint, sealant, stain, varnish, is worth over $200 billion worldwide. In the United States alone, wood protection products generate tens of billions in annual sales. These are some of the largest chemical companies on Earth. BASF, Sherwin-Williams, PPG Industries. These are trillion-dollar ecosystems built around one core consumer behavior, reapplication. You buy, it fails, you buy again. Copper sulfate is an inorganic mineral compound. It has been in the public domain for centuries. It cannot be patented. Any company could sell it. It costs almost nothing to produce. A 1-pound bag, enough to treat hundreds of linear feet of wood, costs less than $5. There's no margin in that. There's no business model in a product that works so well you only need to apply it once and then never buy it again. So what did they do? They didn't suppress the science, they just buried it. They never mentioned it in their marketing. They never included it in home improvement guides. They trained their retail staff to talk about primers and top coats and UV-resistant finishes. They sponsored home improvement television shows that showed beautiful deck staining projects, always with their branded products. They made copper sulfate invisible to the average homeowner by simply never letting it enter the conversation. They have been profiting from your ignorance. Every gallon of paint you bought that peeled within 3 years, every deck you restained, every fence board you replaced because the rot got in, every contractor who quoted you $5,000 for wood treatment that cost him $40 in materials. Every single one of those transactions was built on the foundation of information they chose to keep from you. And here's the fear you need to sit with for a moment. Every year you don't know this. Every year you keep repainting, resealing, and watching your wood deteriorate. The structural damage compounds. Wood rot is not cosmetic. Wood rot is structural. Once it gets into a deck joist, a fence post base, a sill plate at the bottom of your exterior wall, you are no longer talking about a paint job. You're talking about a structural repair. You're talking about a contractor telling you that your deck needs to be torn down and rebuilt. You're talking about $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for something that started as a crack in a paint job that let moisture in 3 years ago. Every year you wait, the wood underneath gets weaker, and the bill at the end gets bigger. Copper sulfate is the cheapest and most powerful wood protection method most homeowners never learn about. Just mix it with hot water and apply 2 coats to bare wood. It protects fences, decks, and posts from rot, moisture, and decay for years. The whole treatment costs less than a single can of paint. A 100-year-old wood preservation trick the industry forgot.